On the quiet evening of July 20th, 2019, as the clock approached midnight in Western Sydney, emergency services received a call from Sinclair Avenue. The female caller identified herself as Jessica, speaking in a measured voice despite the circumstances she described. "Yes, I can. My fingers are broken," she told the operator when asked if she could hear them. "Mom has had enough of me because I admit I've been a challenge, and this ongoing thing has been going for months and months." Jessica proceeded to explain to the operator that there had been an altercation with her mother. According to her account, her mother had taken her by the hair and pulled her to the kitchen, where a confrontation occurred involving kitchen knives. What followed was a violent episode that resulted in severe harm to her mother. Jessica described leaving her residence afterward, attempting to find assistance from neighbors. When police arrived at the scene, they would encounter Jessica outside, visibly distressed and injured. Senior Constable Anthony D'Agostino was among the officers who responded to the call. Upon arrival, he activated his body camera to document the scene. The footage would later show a young woman standing in the darkness, illuminated only by the officers' flashlights. Her appearance indicated she had been involved in a serious physical altercation. Jessica Camilleri, age 25, was the younger daughter of Vince and Rita Camilleri, a couple of Maltese-Australian heritage. From her early years, Jessica's development had presented challenges for the family. Her developmental milestones, such as walking and talking, had occurred later than typical, and educational professionals had noted these delays during her schooling. Jessica had been diagnosed with several conditions affecting her cognitive and emotional regulation. These included attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, bipolar disorder, and autism spectrum disorder. She also experienced a condition called intermittent explosive disorder, which manifested as sudden episodes of emotional volatility and aggressive behavior. This condition typically begins around age 6 and often intensifies during adolescence and early adulthood. Mental health specialists would later note that these conditions were sometimes exacerbated by social difficulties she experienced, including being the target of negative attention from peers during her school years. When these episodes occurred in educational settings, they often resulted in temporary suspensions. Jessica's social functioning was affected by difficulties with perspective taking and empathy. In 2015, when Jessica was in her teenage years, her parents separated. Her father expressed that he found it challenging to address her behavioral issues and felt that Rita was unable to establish effective boundaries. Rita was deeply committed to her family responsibilities. In addition to providing support for Jessica, she also cared for her own mother. The combined responsibilities created ongoing strain for Rita, which continued to increase over time. Jessica maintained part-time employment as a cashier at a Kmart location in Mount Druitt. During her leisure time, she enjoyed watching horror films, particularly favoring titles such as Saw and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Her social media activity reflected both this interest in horror cinema and her close relationship with her mother. One recurring behavior that Jessica engaged in was making telephone calls to randomly generated numbers, often using her preferred digits, 2, 3, and 5. She would place numerous calls throughout the day, hoping to reach male recipients. When successful, she would sometimes make concerning statements if the person attempted to end the conversation. By 2018, Jessica had begun repeatedly calling a business in Victoria, developing a fixation on the company's manager, a man named Matthew. She contacted various staff members multiple times, occasionally making distressing statements. After approximately 2 months of these calls, Rita contacted the company to express her concerns about her daughter's behavior, indicating she felt uncertain about how to address the situation. She mentioned she would try removing Jessica's phones to curtail the behavior. The calls temporarily ceased, but resumed after about 2 weeks. Jessica then located Matthew's social connections on Facebook and began contacting them as well, including his spouse and extended family members. The frequency of these calls sometimes exceeded 100 per day, creating significant disruption. Matthew reached out to Rita again, expressing that the situation was becoming untenable. Rita explained that Jessica had developed romantic feelings for Matthew after seeing his photograph. Jessica's emotional regulation difficulties manifested in other settings as well. She had been asked not to return to a medical practice after becoming agitated around female patients and requiring intervention. Similar episodes occurred in retail environments and public spaces. On one occasion, she was admitted to a psychiatric unit for 9 days to address a severe mood disturbance. Jessica had been prescribed various medications over time, including antipsychotics, mood stabilizers, and antidepressants, but these appeared to provide limited benefit. By late 2018, Jessica was no longer taking prescribed medications, instead using alternative approaches. Despite these ongoing challenges, Rita remained steadfast in her support for her daughter, consistently advocating for her and providing protection. People beyond the immediate family were aware of the situation. In messages Rita sent to a friend, she described a recent incident. "The other day, I had to call an ambulance because Jess had a meltdown and was getting uptight, and I didn't know what to do. So I called the ambulance at 2 in the morning, and the ambulance came with the police, but they didn't take her to hospital because she hadn't done anything at that time." Rita continued, noting that Jessica got scared and worried at the time because she did not want to go back to the mental health unit hospital again. She needs to wake up to herself because if she doesn't, the police officer who came to my house with the ambulance told me, "If we find ourselves back here and have to come back out to the house for this matter, this time she won't be so lucky." In another message to the same friend Rita mentioned, "I'm just informing you that Jess has changed her Facebook account. She is no longer on her old Facebook account because of that guy she was having problems with. I told her if I were you, I would not be mucking around with this D-head ever again. Otherwise, it is going to be her own grave she will be digging, and she is now scared and worried. Our whole family told her she is playing with fire doing this. Just let the D-head go. He is not worth it by a long shot." Jessica's older sister, Christy, would later explain that in early July 2019, feeling that conventional approaches had been ineffective, Rita consulted a spiritual medium who requested nearly $5,000 to address what was described as getting the demon out of Jessica. Rita provided $2,500, but did not receive any services in return. During that same month, a family acquaintance expressed serious concerns to Rita about Jessica's behavior, suggesting that Jessica might eventually harm someone severely. Rita responded, "Not my Jessica, she wouldn't hurt a fly." On July 19, 2019, Rita accompanied Jessica to the police station regarding the persistent unwanted telephone calls. This was not their first interaction with law enforcement. Over the preceding 6 years, Jessica had received convictions for 2 counts of assault, occasioning actual bodily harm, and 2 counts of common assault. Rather than serving time in a correctional facility, she had been released into Rita's care. On July 20th, 2019, Jessica and Rita were in a parking area when a man walked past them. Following this, Jessica became upset with her mother, believing that Rita had embarrassed her in front of this individual. They proceeded to Jessica's sister's residence, where tensions continued to escalate despite Rita's attempts to calm the situation. Jessica requested a medical professional to visit, but when the doctor arrived, the physician departed quickly, expressing concern for personal safety. Jessica followed the doctor to the driveway, but the doctor was able to enter her vehicle and leave the location. At the time, Rita was supervising her 4-year-old grandson, referred to as Child A, for privacy reasons. Jessica appeared to believe that Rita was giving more attention to the child than to her. At approximately 9:20 p.m., Jessica made several calls to a fast food establishment called Red Rooster, attempting to order additional food. Rita expressed that she had reached her limit, stating she would contact emergency services to arrange for Jessica to re-enter mental health care. The situation deteriorated further, with Jessica following Rita to the bedroom, where a physical altercation began. What followed was a severe, violent episode in the kitchen of the home. Jessica inflicted numerous injuries upon her mother, using multiple kitchen knives, several of which broke due to the force applied. The injuries were extensive and caused fatal harm to Rita. During the incident, the 4-year-old grandson attempted to intervene by striking Jessica with a toy box lid, sustaining minor injuries to his hands, head, and face in the process. He was later treated at a hospital and discharged to family care. After the incident, Jessica went outside with evidence of the altercation and approached neighbors. When police arrived, Jessica made inquiries about medical possibilities for her mother, asking officers, "Can they sew the head back on? Can you bring someone back to life?" "There's nothing you can do. She's a goner, because I know doctors can do miracles." The officer responded that such intervention would not be possible, to which Jessica replied, "I thought doctors can do miracle surgeries." She then asked, "Is anything going to happen to me? Do I get the death penalty?" When informed that capital punishment is not practiced in Australia, she responded, "Okay, so I've got nothing to worry about." The incident received significant attention throughout Australia. Police Detective Superintendent Brett McFadden told reporters, "The family is distraught as to what has taken place. This is up there with one of the most significant, most horrific scenes police have had to face. There is no stepping away from the fact that this was horrific and a significant attack, and the injuries that the victim suffered were extensive. It is a very difficult, challenging, confronting investigation." The officers and emergency personnel who responded to the scene were offered counseling services to help process the traumatic nature of their experience, as forensic investigators examined the location and police gathered witness statements. Tributes to Rita began appearing. One friend remarked, "To add to the sadness, Rita was looking after her bedridden, frail mother too. This is just horrific. She was fun, irreverent, and vibrant. She loved music and was very community-minded. She connected with everyone because she was lovely." A neighbor commented, "They always seem to have parties all the time, just parties over there. I never heard anything like shouting or screaming. There had been some issues in the past that have made Jessica known to the cops and other groups, but it seems it has gone much further this time." At St. Mary's Police Station, Jessica's hands were covered with evidence bags, and traces of dried blood remained on her body and clothing. She told officers, "She's had enough of me." She was at her wits' end. "I want everyone to know this. I've hurt a lot of people in the past, but I have never laid a finger on my mom until tonight. I understand she has had enough of me because I'm a piece of work." Jessica continued, "My mom lost her patience. I wanted to give her a taste of her own medicine, but not to kill her. I had to keep stabbing her. I think that's what's happened." She also expressed concern about how her family members would regard her after the incident, to which the officer replied that they were understandably very upset. The day following the incident, Jessica appeared in Parramatta bail court via video link charged with murder. She did not apply for bail release and informed the court, "I really need medical attention. I told all the officers and told the police at the station. I cannot move my fingers properly because of the incident. I am not fit to come to jail until I get cleaned up. I could not wash myself properly in the shower to get all the blood off me because of my fingers." The magistrate ordered that she receive medical assessment before her next court appearance. She entered a plea of not guilty to the murder charge, with her legal representative arguing that her mental health conditions had significantly reduced her capacity for self-control. Her attorney suggested that the charge should be modified to manslaughter. While awaiting trial in custody, psychiatrist Professor David Greenberg met with Jessica. He later reported, "After leaving school, she was placed in supportive environments where she had explosive outbursts and was asked to leave. She was unable to cope in all of these environments, so she ended up on disability support pension. She won't lose control on every occasion, loses control when there's a stressor or she perceives provocation." The psychiatric reports also indicated that Jessica had stated, "I know people will think I'm sick. I thought I'll put her out of her pain. I was so agitated and frustrated because I was thinking sick thoughts." She mentioned to Professor Greenberg that she had been influenced by horror films, telling him to note that information for the judge. She further described the incident to Professor Greenberg. "I wasn't thinking. I was panicky, frustrated, and raged. Mom was slapping me. She grabbed me by the hair. I grabbed my mom. I dragged her all the way to the kitchen by the hair. I saw red. Remember pulling the knife. I wanted to scare her at first. Mom got the knife off me and chucked it away. I was so agitated I lost it. I was stabbing her. I was so angry I think I had sick thoughts. I got it off horror movies, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, Jeepers Creepers, and Saw." Regarding Jessica's personality characteristics, Professor Greenberg noted that she presented as self-centered with a history of seeking attention and becoming distressed when attention was directed elsewhere. He observed, "She appeared to have a sense of entitlement and unreasonable expectations of preferential treatment, potentially reacting with intense anger when her needs were not addressed." He indicated she seemed to consider herself unique due to her disabilities and might not fully recognize that others also have emotional needs. While in custody, awaiting trial, Jessica was involved in several incidents. On September 10, 2019, she was charged with assault after throwing a cup of tea at another inmate. Approximately 1 month later, on October 14th, she was confined to her cell for 5 days after another physical altercation with an inmate. On November 3rd, she failed to comply with directions, and in July of the following year, she was fined $200 for damaging property. She received an additional 7 days of cell confinement on November 21st, 2020, following another assault. On November 30th, 2020, the case proceeded to trial at the New South Wales Supreme Court, presided over by Justice Helen Wilson. The proceedings lasted for 5 days. Jessica, now 27 years old, occasionally smiled at court officers as she sat in the defendant's area, accompanied by a support worker. In opening statements, the prosecution noted Jessica's extensive history of assaultive behavior and described Rita as highly protective and defensive of her daughter. The court heard that Jessica had unreasonable expectations of treatment, a pattern of demanding attention, low self-esteem, but a sense of entitlement. When initially questioned by police, she had claimed she acted in self-defense, stating that her mother had threatened to have her admitted to a psychiatric facility and had attacked her. When this was recounted in court, family members were observed making audible sounds of exasperation. Jessica's sister, Christy, provided testimony stating that Jessica constantly sought attention and would make demands of her mother. She added that Jessica would frequently replay favorite sections of horror films and would become highly agitated if these were taken away. Regarding Jessica's behavior, the court heard that Rita had felt unsupported by various service providers over the years and was exhausted by the challenges of providing care for her daughter. Evidence suggested that following Jessica's father's departure, her behavior had worsened as he had provided structure and boundaries. Rita's sister testified that she had discussed Jessica's behavior with Rita on numerous occasions. She was blinded and couldn't see what I could see. She was a mother, and a mother's love knows no boundaries. I pray Jess will get the help she needs so Rita can rest in peace, knowing her daughter is being looked after by a system that let her down. The court also heard from Professor Greenberg, who had extensively interviewed Jessica while she was in custody. He stated, "She prefers to talk to men because that excites her. She's not particularly interested in talking to women. If they insult her or become angry or distressed by her cause, she becomes distressed, and that kicks into her intermittent explosive disorder." He continued, "There's no one disorder that describes her. I'm of the opinion that at the time of the incident, she likely had the capacity to understand the events and judge whether her actions were right or wrong. However, I'm of the opinion that based on the comorbid psychiatric diagnoses, her capacity to control herself was substantially impaired by her abnormality of mind arising from her underlying conditions." The defense called forensic psychiatrist Dr. Richard First, who testified that he believed Jessica had a long-standing abnormality of the mind and that she understood her actions were wrong. He indicated that the central question was whether she had the capacity to control her behavior, and in his assessment, that ability was impaired. A police constable read a statement describing the scene, providing factual details of what officers had encountered upon arrival. After hearing all testimony and evidence, the jury retired to consider their verdict. Following 2 days of deliberation on December 10th, 2020, they returned with their decision. Jessica Camilleri was found not guilty of murder, but guilty of manslaughter. During the impact statements presented by family members, Jessica remained expressionless. Her legal representative explained that due to her mental health conditions, she did not process emotions in the same way as others. Outside the courthouse, Jessica's sister Christy spoke to reporters. She had support from many avenues, and unfortunately, I feel that our mental health system let her down, let my mother down, let my whole family down. My mother was a beautiful person, inside and out, a heart of gold, and she would have put anybody in front of her own needs. I have to live with a little boy, that has to live with that trauma for the rest of his life. She has no support from our family, so I don't really care what happens to her from this point on or when she is released, and I just hope that it is a lengthy sentence so that way members of the community remain safe. My mother went through every avenue: doctors, psychiatrists, the mental health system itself, and nothing ever pulled through, which led us here. I can't look at her. She took our mother like she was nothing. In delivering the sentence, the judge stated, the unlawful killing of Rita Camilleri on the 20th of July, 2019, must be regarded as one of the most serious instances of manslaughter it is possible for any imagination to conjure. A plea of guilty or an offer to enter a plea of guilty can sometimes operate as evidence of remorse. I do not regard it as such in the present instance. Immediately after killing her mother, the offender's concern was for herself. She invented an account of having been attacked by her mother in an attempt to avoid responsibility for what she had done. When her family gave their victim impact statements to the court during the sentence proceedings, the offender seemed uninterested rather than saddened at what were objectively deeply moving accounts of loss and enduring grief. The judge continued, "There is a real issue here of the offender's future dangerousness and a requirement to consider what is needed for the protection of the community. The offender told Professor Greenberg and medical notes record that she had assaulted a number of other people in the community. Since entering custody, and despite the close supervision provided in a custodial environment, the offender has been both criminally charged and institutionally penalized for offending behavior. Upon her eventual release from prison, the offender will not have the support and supervision of her mother, and she will not have her mother to ensure that she attends medical appointments and takes prescribed medication. She will not have a calm and safe family home to go to upon release. The possibility of a violent outburst against someone in the community looms large. The protection of the community must be a significant consideration in light of the extreme gravity of this crime, the very great harm done, and the need to protect the community from the offender. A stern sentence is called for." Before pronouncing the sentence, the judge expressed sympathy to Jessica's sister and family, acknowledging that no judicial outcome could alleviate their loss or diminish their grief. Jessica was sentenced to 21 years and 7 months imprisonment beginning on July 20th, 2019, and ending February 19th, 2041. The non-parole period was set at 16 years and 2 months, with eligibility for parole consideration on September 19th, 2035. In a letter to her family, Jessica wrote, "It didn't hit me at first, but then it hit me like a ton of bricks, like a mountain. I know it's my fault that my mother isn't here." In September 2022, Jessica appealed her sentence. Her attorney argued that a reduced sentence should have been given because she had been willing to plead guilty to manslaughter before the trial. She had done everything she could to bring about the outcome that was achieved as early as she could. The lawyer also stated that her behavior had improved considerably since transferring to a different correctional facility. The prosecution opposed the appeal, maintaining that the gravity of Jessica's actions warranted a substantial sentence. However, the appeal was successful, with 2 of the 3 judges granting it. Her sentence was reduced to 16 years and 6 months in custody, with a non-parole period of 12 years. The court noted, objectively, the facts were gruesome and brutal and involved a frenzied attack on an innocent victim in her own home. On the other hand, the offense was spontaneous and the result of Camilleri losing control of herself because of her complex psychiatric illness. Since beginning her sentence, Jessica has been charged with multiple assaults against fellow inmates and correctional officers. In 2021, she was charged with attacking two female corrective services officers. One officer told the court, "My hair was ripped from my scalp. I felt lost and isolated for weeks after the assault. While I continue to physically endure pain and discomfort, the psychological toll is what weighs heaviest on me. The assault shattered my sense of security." This officer was subsequently diagnosed with post-traumatic stress disorder. In August 2023, Jessica was charged with 2 additional counts of common assault after allegedly attacking 2 female guards. An additional 22 months were added to her sentence with a non-parole period of 15 months. She told the court, "I don't understand. This is a waste of time. They don't like me, and people outside want me to face more time. I'm looking at a long time in jail. I've been targeted because of what the other girls have made me out to be. They single me out in prison because of the nature of my crime. Corrections moved me from that wing where that fight occurred. I don't know what they're doing, but now there's some behavioral wing. They want to keep me there for a month before moving me to the women's prison. No matter what I do, no matter where I go, other prisoners will make my life a living hell. It's not like the outside world. It's hard in here." The residence where the incident occurred was eventually listed for rental occupancy. The case reflects the significant challenges faced by families caring for individuals with complex mental health needs. Rita showed unwavering commitment to her daughter, despite the difficulties, demonstrating profound maternal devotion. For those affected by these events, the passage of time may gradually provide some measure of healing.